like to welcome all of our friends and neighbors and colleagues in joining us for this regularly scheduled December 16th, 2019 City Council meeting. As you come in, to my right, there'll be a sign-in sheet on the desk. Please sign in if you're in attendance tonight. May I please have a roll call vote? City Clerk?
Councilperson Bell?
Here.
Briner?
Here.
Veer?
Here.
Morrissey?
Here.
Sharp? Here. Stuchel?
Here.
Pratt? Here. Sizer?
Here.
And Mayor Stockford?
Here.
All present.
Thank you, Katie. We'll move into the approval of the agenda. Does any members of council or the city manager have any changes they'd like to make to the agenda tonight?
Mayor, could we add a new item for public safety? There was a citizen's got some issues with Stocks Park and some unsafe issues that we could maybe talk about.
Okay.
Do you want to do that in council comment or unless there's like specific action?
Yeah, let's, well, I think did you have something to add, Dave?
We could do it under communication.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Because I know a number of us received an email from the resident.
Okay.
Sure. So let's add an item D under communication, Stock Park safety concerns.
Yeah.
Do I have any more changes, guys and ladies? Do I have a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Bell, seconded by Councilman Veer. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right, so do I have a motion now to approve the entire agenda as amended?
So moved. Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Briner. May I please have a roll call vote, City Clerk?
Councilperson Briner?
Yes.
Veer?
Yes.
Morrissey?
Yes.
Sharp?
Yes.
Stuchel?
Yes.
Pratt?
Yes.
Councilperson Sizer?
Yes.
Mayor Stockford?
Yes.
And Councilperson Bell?
Yes.
All approved.
Thank you, Katie. We'll move into public comment on agenda items. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit your comment to 5 minutes. Please limit your trips to 1 to the podium. Please make sure that anything that you comment on has a direct tie to something that's present in the agenda. Podium's now open.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and Greg for the amendment. That's what I'm here to talk about. I was going to save my comments for the end, but I appreciate that. So my name's Robert Soha. I live at 29 South Broad Street, right here in town, and took the pleasure of this beautiful brisk night to walk here. And as I did, I walked by Stocks Park, and one of the things I noticed is there is nothing posted about when you are allowed to be at the park. At least not on the gates there leading in from Bacon. But I wrote this email to Councilman Briner, and I've spoken to Mayor Stockford and to City Manager Mackey, to Councilman Bell and to Councilman Stuchel, but I couldn't get in touch with Ray today, so I wrote this email and I'd like to read it to you all and have it in public comment. As I said, I live here in Hillsdale in Ward 4 at 29 South Broad Street. The beautiful Mrs. Stocks Park Pavilion stands immediately behind my home. The park and its amenities is one of the reasons we fell in love with and purchased our home in 2016. It is one of our joys to sit back and people watch as they stroll through the park. And the events in the park, from concerts to movies to weddings and more, are a thrill, and I am proud we have such a magnificent park to engage in such activities. Much to my consternation, though, over the past 6 to 12 months, I have noticed an increase in vagrants using the pavilion as their personal shelter. In May of this year, we celebrated my daughter's 16th birthday at the pavilion and needed to chase away a couple who had been loitering there for hours. It was apparent they were not at the park to enjoy its leisure, but were simply in need of a place to hang out, and chose the pavilion as that place. The frequency of people lingering longer than what one would consider appropriate has caused my family to feel less secure in our effects and hesitate to allow our children to freely use the park as we previously felt able to do. I would also like to bring to your attention today an event last night which has prompted this email and this council meeting attendance tonight. I called Hillsdale's non-emergency police number early evening, but after darkness had fallen, to inform them of a man who had been loitering and pacing in circles around the pavilion for at least an hour and a half. I witnessed him. What prompted the phone call was he laid down. I'm grateful the police were quick to respond and appreciate the amazing job they do for our city and to keep it safe, but was discontent when the man was allowed to remain. I do not know if the man left or stayed last night, but this morning, as I was driving by the park on East Bacon at 7:45 a.m., I noticed two men exiting the park and wondered why they would have been there so early. I don't like having to be concerned with the people who are utilizing our city's amenities. My tax dollars being used to maintain the park gives me ample reason to request the city address vagrancy issues and not allow people to loiter, camp, or spend the night on public property. I expect our fine police department to enforce the laws and call on this astute council to review the city's loitering and vagrancy laws and amend or create them as necessary to ensure public safety. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Robert. Any more public comment?
My name is Louise Worms. I live at 80 East Fayette Street. I wanted to talk about the leaf bag collection. It's not on the agenda. May I still go ahead?
Is there anything about it in the packet? I'm sorry, Louise, you're gonna have to wait till public comment.
Okay, I thought that
General public
part of
comment.
that was early on, and then part of it was later, so I'll wait.
That's okay. Sorry about that. Any more public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the podium, move into the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we've got approval of bills, city claims November 27, BPU claims November 27, payroll December 12, city council minutes of December 2nd, finance minutes of December 2nd. Is there any discussion on any items in the consent agenda? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Bell to approve the consent agenda. May I please have a roll call vote, City Clerk?
Councilperson Buer,
Yes.
Morrissey,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
Stuchel,
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Sizer,
Yes.
Mayor Stockford,
Yes.
Councilperson Bell,
Yes.
and Briner.
Yes.
All approved.
Thank you, Katie. We will move into communications petitions. Item A, there's a nice flyer from Kimball Camp in there. Asking for pledges, if anybody's interested in that. Item B is Kay Freeze, our HR Director's retirement. Kay's been with the city 40 years. Isn't that unbelievable? It's amazing, Kay. And what would we do without Kay? That's for sure. She's been the backbone of the city. I know that. So we're having a party on December 20th, which is Friday this week. It's from 2 to 4. Everyone is welcome. I'll be there. Kay, do you want to introduce the new HR director?
You can come up, yes. Yeah, this is Laura Surgeon. She's actually from the Quincy area, and Laura and I have been working together since probably, I think, September 30th, and so the last 3 months, and she's going to be replacing me and starting, actually, she's been going, so as of next Monday, hang on, because payroll comes again, so I think we're going to be good. So anyway.
I got this.
She's got this. So anyway, so yeah, Laura will be on board, and any questions or anything, again, concerns about HR and payroll, you want to talk to Laura about it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kay. All right, we'll move into item C in communications petitions, Toys for Tots. This is a letter thanking the city for its participation in Toys for Tots. I know the police department gets very involved in it, so we appreciate that. And that is from Pamela Bogner, who's a Marine Corps Toys for Tots coordinator. And it also includes a certificate of appreciation. So, and then item D is Stocks Parks safety concern. So we all got to listen to Robert's concerns, which are concerning, I would say. I don't know if you guys know. I put it on Facebook, but we had some homeless that were they frequent our neighborhood a lot, and on I don't know what it was, Monday I think this week, I came home from work and I was tired, so I wanted to take a quick nap, and I laid upstairs and my dogs woke me up barking. So I went downstairs to tell them to shut up, and I mean they were just in hysterics for like 10 minutes. And so I go downstairs and I see these people walking off of our front porch. Now we are participating in a pop bottle drive with Hillsdale Prep School. The parents' council is, and Shawnee's on the parents' council. So they gave us like $150 worth of pop bottles to take back to the store, and we were supposed to take them back and then return the money to Hillsdale Prep. And of course, both of us are super busy, so we hadn't gotten to it yet. They've been on the porch for about a week at that point, and these people had all the bottles in this. They were on bikes, and they were walking their bikes. They had a bag of bottles in each arm, and then they had those toddler carriers on the back, and they had those filled with bottles. They must have had $100 worth of bottles at least. So I'm in my pajamas, and I opened up the door and yelled at them some naughty words. And they looked back at me, and they kept going. So I put my sandals on and ran out after them on the street and stopped them. And the guy said, and the lady says, I told you this was the wrong house, to her friend that she had with her partner. And he said, oh, Jim told us we could come get the bottles. So anyways, I guess what I'm saying is your concerns don't fall on deaf ears, Robert. We had Shelby Rathbun come out from the police department, and she tracked the bike trails around the house, and these guys are out near our garage. They were all over the neighborhood, and apparently I know my neighbors had some stuff stolen off of their porch, packages from Amazon. Definitely not accusing those people of that, because I don't know if they did that, but yeah, there's some vagrancy and homeless concerns in our city, and it really upsets me, because I volunteer at the warming center and do volunteer at King's Cupboard and volunteer at Salvation Army. So, we really try our hardest to try to help people. So, I guess Robert wanted to talk about vagrancy laws. Chief, do you know any of them off the top of your head? I mean, it's a public park, so you can't really tell people you can only be there 2 hours or.
That would have been why they didn't remove them. If they were not doing anything illegal and we're not there past park hours, they can't make them leave the park.
Okay, but we do have park hours.
Right, and I'm just not sure you have Stocks Park mirrors Sandy Beach and Owens Park, which is prohibited between midnight and 4 a.m.
Sure.
And some of the parks are prohibited after 10 p.m. They're all listed in the Muni Code, which parks have which restricted hours.
Okay.
But any time, and I've been down there personally myself during the day when somebody was going to use a pavilion or set up for a wedding and there were people loitering, as was stated, we've gone down and talked to them and moved them on the appropriate manner so that the festivities could take place. But if they're not violating any current ordinance or state laws and they're within the time frame, we really can't move them out of the park.
Sure. And we're in a funny gray area with Stocks Park too, because it's a public park that anybody can use, but we rent out the pavilion. But when we rent out the pavilion, does that give us the justification to tell other people that can't be there too?
That's when we usually end up down there, and if people don't want to cooperate, sometimes they have warrants, sometimes there's other things going on. But we've had to move people on for people that have rented out the pavilion and need to set up and have concerns. The guys go down there and express that and get it taken care of.
Sure. Any questions for the chief, or?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay.
Chief, I've heard rumors about, but these are just rumors, I don't know if they're true or not, about people being accosted along the bike paths by people who are maybe camping out along there. Have you heard anything like that?
Not about people being accosted, no.
Okay. I've you know, this is, you have to take it with a grain of
The
salt. 'cause it's-
encampment that you're talking about is on private property
Oh,
where
okay.
people are staying. And the owners of that property are aware that these people are staying there.
I see. But you haven't heard anything about even people, you know, yelling at people walking by, or
I can remember hearing one complaint, but I think it was more of a concern that
just that it was
there were
happening?
homeless people there.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Well, I was just questioning a comment. You know, we talk as a council that safety is our value. This is what we want as far as our community has a safe community. And at the same time, this is a paradox. You want an open community. You want everyone coming to our parks using this thing. At the same time, how do we secure that safety? You know, because this, a little bit of deterioration can start to escalate pretty quickly. I guess my question, Chief, is it possible to have just more of a presence? I mean, just part of the routine of their routes of your officers, that they just drive through the
We
park?
can have them go into that park after hours to double check it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, you know, if there's a known presence and it's constant, that this, I'm asking. I don't know if that helps, if that's more of a burden for you, but, you know.
No. They do it periodically now anyway. We can
Okay.
just ask them to step it up and do a little more to see if that helps take care of
Yeah.
the problem. But it's well known throughout the community, the homeless population exploded this year in our community.
Yeah. And do you know why that is? I mean, is there a reason why that is?
From a social standpoint, or
I mean, are we getting people shipped here because we have facilities and we do offer services? Are people coming here because of that?
I think
I mean,
it's because we haven't run them out somehow. I have communicated with officers from larger departments that deal with this on a larger scale than we do, and you cannot just move them on. You can't just take their encampment. You have to have search warrants. That's considered private property. There are larger communities such as Ann Arbor and places like that that have to struggle with this. They have to come up, I guess, with a philosophy on what's going to be acceptable for their community now, because, you know, even you have organizations here in our community that will say anybody that's homeless has a mental health issue or diagnosis. Whether you agree with that or disagree with it, I tend to disagree with it. Some people, that's just how they want to live.
Yep.
We deal with people with mental health issues daily, multiple times a day now this time of year, repetitively. Some of these people are in a vicious cycle that they cannot get out of for multiple reasons. I don't see where these people are receiving the care that they can have. Some don't want the care, and there's just not enough funding in the organizations to get these people into apartments, whether the apartments would even let them in there. The Community Action Agency has some places that they house some people, but it's very limited.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a paradox. We want an open, beautiful parks. We want to invite everybody, but at the same time, we want to protect it.
We still have some green spaces.
Yeah.
The problem is when you eliminate the green spaces and take those places away, then you'll have your private citizens start finding them in their garages, their sheds.
Yeah.
They were found in the Dawn Theater.
Yep.
We had to resecure that building. They find places. So
Yeah.
do you want to know where they're at out in your green space, or do you want them filtering through your community and going to other places? These are all things that we have to have the conversations on, and again, come up with a decision on what's going to be acceptable for the city of Hillsdale and how
Well-
we proceed with this, because it's not getting any better.
Yeah. Well, maybe step one is just a little bit more patrol, and I'm sure with people like Robin who's living there will help tell us if they're seeing a decrease or an increase, if it's having an effect. You know, we just take a little step, see what happens.
We can do that.
Councilman Bell.
Just as far as the law is concerned, it's section 24-36. It shall be unlawful unless authorized by the city council for any person to enter or remain in any of the following parks during the following periods of time. So there are two sets. There's a summer kind of hours and a winter hours, and the winter hours for Mrs. Stock's Park are closed, are 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So it's pretty.
Cut and dry?
Yeah. In the summer, it's 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So anyway, you can go find that on MuniCode if you're interested. if you want to hang it out on your door or something.
And that's
Those
just
are
for Miss
places.
Stocks Park?
Yeah, all the parks are listed here, and they all have different hours, but they pretty much follow the same pattern. In fact, I don't think I see, a couple of them are a little bit different, Sandy Beach and Waterworks. Most of them are the same.
Any, Councilman Zeiser?
Do we have a rough head count on the number of homeless? I know you said it exploded. I mean, or even what kind of percentage increase are we looking at?
There are community surveys that go out multiple times a year, and organizations like the Community Action Agency that tried to track that, so I could not say.
Okay.
I know the homeless population that we deal with, where maybe we had 4, I think we're up there closer to 20 that were permanent, all summer long, all fall long, outdoor residents that we deal with. So there's probably more than that.
Okay. That, I mean, yeah, and as you say, anecdotally, everybody can kind of see that. I mean, I know I walk through in the summer months, Mrs. Stocks Park every night, and I see the people kind of brown bagging it and hanging out with their backpacks and their bicycles and tottering around like they do. So,
But we know some of them are doing just what Adam said. They're stealing things from porches, and
Yeah.
we stay on those people. We have recovered some of the stolen property that we've had taken from porches. We know who these people are, and what's nice to know is that we know where they are. When
Right.
we have to have an issue, we send 2 officers at a time because of how many of them are in a couple of these places or areas. They've been accommodating for the most part, so we've got a good relationship, good rapport right now, which I think is a bonus to not knowing where they're at or having it to where we have no rapport at all.
but you wouldn't say that this rises to the level that there are certain areas in the community where people should know not to wander, or, I mean, obviously we should always.
Because I know of not, these people want to be where they're at, they're
Right.
not causing, we've had these communications, these conversations between the police department and them. They fully understand.
Yeah, they kind of want to be left alone, and they.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just, it's tricky for us and as the city, from a municipality standpoint, government standpoint. You know, they have personal property, and if they're not on public property, basically they've been where they're at long enough, there probably would have to be some type of eviction process.
Well, it's really a new issue for us as a community, so.
Yep.
And I've met also with Community Action Agency, like the chief was stating, and I met with a caseworker over there because I know somebody that recently became homeless, and it wasn't one of these homeless that we have that prefer to be homeless because that's the lifestyle that they've adopted, or they're mentally ill. This is just somebody that was living out of their car for a few weeks because they absolutely could not find housing in Hillsdale, not even in Hillsdale County. And what you hear from the Community Action Agency over and over is there's such a lack of affordable housing in Hillsdale. I know we've turned down some affordable apartment complexes recently, and I know why we did it, and I'm not saying that it wasn't wise, but all these things are issues that we should keep in mind moving forward. But I have confidence in our police force. I can tell you one thing is, as soon as I made the report, there was an officer at my house in a couple minutes. She knew exactly who the people were. She knew exactly where they were at. She knew them by name, and within 20 minutes, it was all cleared up pretty much. So you guys are very vigilant, and we appreciate that, Chief.
This is a true social issue right now, and it'll have to be, if it's gonna be improved upon, it's gonna have to be from multifaceted, multi-angles, multiple disciplines, organizations all working together on it. They say they do now, but there's a reason why it's getting worse.
Any more questions, comments? Thank you for all your information, Chief.
Mayor, if I may, I will print out the letter or the email that we received from Mr. Soha and include it in the council packet since the council agenda was updated.
Yes, please do. Thank you very much. Well, I guess Robert, I mean, I guess that probably didn't alleviate much for you, but you know the stated hours of the park now, so you know.
Make one more statement?
Yeah, you can make
Just
one more
brief.
statement since, yeah.
I would call on you to consider the taxpayers above the vagrants. I'm sorry for their condition, and I'm sorry for the choices they've made in their lives that have caused them this pain and where they're at. But I work hard, 2 jobs, to maintain for my family. And I don't feel safe allowing my daughter to walk our dog at times when I see these people in that park. That park is for us as a community to enjoy, not for people to habitate. And I would urge you, with as strong a voice as I can, to prefer the tax-paying citizens of this community above those who would choose to usurp and use our generosity through the services that we provide. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Any more discussion, Dave?
Mayor, just a suggestion on what we can do in the immediately is look at getting it posted with the hours of the park. And then as Chief said, if we up our presence there and walk through in the evening into the late hours and show that presence, hopefully that will help. And we can revisit this, in a month or whatever time is necessary.
Thank you, Dave. Councilman Veer?
Is there any way from a council standpoint? Now we have as far as in parking downtown, we have a 2-hour limit. Aside from when the park is being utilized for a wedding, that you could put a time limit on individuals using the park? Is there any legal thing on that? No.
You can't. Not just maybe. You can't.
Because if I wanted to go to the park and spend all day down there, I could spend all day at the park. Didn't come in there and tell me, you gotta leave.
Could council mandate that the use of the park is for city residents only?
No, it's
Okay.
public land.
It's public.
Yeah. Councilman Worsey, did you have something?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that we ought to address this in some organized way at some point. Maybe Public Safety Committee bringing in some of the charitable organizations, the police chief and others who know something about this and kind of develop some sort of strategy. Be worthwhile to do that.
Just stay ahead of it. before
Yeah,
it
right.
gets too
Well,
big, yeah.
we're not quite ahead of it yet.
Right,
We're
right.
trying to get up to speed with it, really.
Yep, yep.
There must, I don't know if there's a solution to it or a partial solution, but at least we'll know what we're talking about and how, get our heads around it a little bit better.
Good idea.
It's a catch-22, because like
Yeah, it
Greg
is.
was saying, the more services we offer, it really does draw. I mean, speaking as somebody that volunteers at these places, there's people
right.
that aren't from our community that come because of
right.
the services. Because Jackson Shelter's full, or Ann Arbor
Yep.
Shelter's full, they can't get a night there. But on the flip side of that coin, I know for a fact some of these people are very mentally ill. They have nowhere else to go. Not all of them, but some of them are
Right.
mentally ill. Some
Yeah,
of
I
them
know.
are
It's a-
drug
it's a
problems.
paradox.
And there's just,
Yes.
this is the blowback on it is every answer has a negative consequence to it too. So, but we're a great community. This is a great community that really cares about its residents. So I think if any place can make an impact and try to find that balance between caring for the least among us and ensuring that we're safe, I know this community can do it. So, any more discussion?
Isn't there a place that they can go during the day?
The drop-in center opens
Right.
at 8 o'clock. The warming center closes at 8 o'clock. A lot of people go directly from the warming center to the drop-in center
Okay.
in the winter.
Right.
And then Salvation Army gives a free lunch. So,
Okay.
and both those places usually have food to eat. So some of these people are going from the warming center in the morning to the drop-in center during the day. That closes at 5. Warming center opens back up at 8. They're on the street for 3 hours.
Okay.
So, any more comment, questions? Alrighty. So we've got no introduction, adoption of public ordinances tonight. We'll move into old business. Street project update. Jake?
Well, I'm happy to say that the final task was completed on Friday. In typical fashion of this project, it was supposed to be done Wednesday and Thursday, and it took us Friday also. But they were successful, and they did get that completed. So aside from a couple little warranty things, little thing we're working with Councilman Briner on and Alan, a couple little minor details that we're working out, project is done, other than, like I say, probably grass in the spring and some little warranty type issues. But all the work has been complete.
Good job, Jakeford.
Long time coming, but we made it, so. Aside from that, typical, street activities this time of year, trying to keep the potholes full.
So Bruce, when's the block party?
I will avoid that street till they're really happy. Spring.
2023.
Any questions, comments for Jake, besides a pat on the back and a attaboy? Jake.
Councilman Beer had some.
Hold on one second, Councilman Beer.
Fayette's scheduled to begin.
It'll start early in the spring, probably, I think, May.
May.
Yeah, we'll try to get that kicked off early and get it done as quickly as possible. That's gonna be a major inconvenience, having Fayette down. Again, that's getting a culvert across the river. That's gonna be closed. That's no joke. You won't be able to get through, so, we'll try to get that started as early as possible and get it wrapped up, hopefully before, college students come back in the fall if possible. We'll interfere with school in the front end probably in spring.
Hey, Jake, on that one, just a note, you probably want to make sure that commencement, you're probably already scheduling this, but there'll be thousands of people here for commencement, so. It want to be something on your radar.
It's gonna be a little tricky.
And if it can't happen, I'm sure they'll figure something out. You guys will figure something out.
Alternative route.
We're gonna interfere one end or the other, either in the beginning or the end. I would prefer we did it much like we did Hallett. We kicked it off first thing and had it, of course, that went really well, and we were done by 4th of July.
Right.
There's a lot more work to be done on this project, but I sure would rather see it that way.
Yeah.
We'd buy ourselves some more time if things sometimes don't go like the way you think they should. We get a little time on the back end before the snow flies, so I prefer to start in the spring if we can, just for, I guess, that obvious reason to me.
Yeah.
But I do understand there'll be a lot of events there. The detour's not horrendous. You're gonna have to come around to West Street, of course, or probably Manning, in fact, West or Manning.
It'll be closed from basically Broad to, well,
It'll be closed from the railroad tracks on Fayette east to the intersection of West and Fayette. We're gonna actually clover that out and get things stubbed out the other three directions, so we're ready to hook on and go in the future.
Okay.
So that intersection will be closed too, for the most part. So really Manning will probably be the better choice, the better route for most folks to get access to the north end of town or to the college.
If it happens to be a moving target or whatever and you need some dates, just let me know.
Okay. I'll take them if you want to shoot me an email.
Will do.
Thank you.
Jake, I just wanted to say, I know the past couple years there's been a lot of pressure on you. I know that we all, I don't know, maybe sometimes you felt like you got beat up on a little bit. I think you handled it with class. I know we all got beat up on a little bit.
Sure.
And I would say the same thing about Du Bois. I went down. Sorry. I went down there at the end of the project and ran into some of those guys, and they weren't very happy with me. They were pretty upset. They felt like maybe council didn't give them the sort of support that they should have had. I'm sure your guys felt the same way at times too, but I hope we can just put it behind us now. It's a tough couple years, but we got a ton of work done, and a lot of that comes with just the fact that we're in these positions, but I do want you to know what you've done is very appreciated, and you're doing a good job. So
Thank you. I appreciate that, and we'll just keep focusing on the positive. We've done an awful lot of work, like you said, Mayor, that went very well. So if you look at the whole body, I think as a whole we've done pretty well, hitting timing and doing what we say we're going to do. I guess you'll have one once in a while that doesn't go the way you want it all the time. So again, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, we will move into new business. Item A, 2020 City Council meeting dates. There's a list on here. I would like to amend this list. The first meeting in September is Labor Day, and typically we don't have a council meeting on Labor Day. So we usually cancel the first meeting in September, so I would recommend approving this list with the first meeting in September being removed from the list.
So moved.
Support?
We have a motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey to approve these meeting dates without the first September 7th meeting date included. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I know we just voted. I think, don't we usually include the special meeting the week after the election on this calendar as well? 8 p.m. meeting
Well, that's,
for public
I don't know, that's a
purposes?
special meeting, so this is just the regular meeting dates.
Okay. So we just
so-
post it. We just posted a few weeks before.
Yeah, good catch, though.
I thought I had seen it on past ones anyway.
It might have been there. I
Sorry.
don't know. This would be Katie's first meeting list.
Probably
so.
was a mistake before then. So.
All right, let's move into item B in new business, application for annual right-of-way permit from MDOT. Kathy Flogger's not here. Each year, it is necessary for the city to adopt a resolution which is required by the Michigan Department of Transportation for purposes of issuing individual permits to use its M99 right-of-way within the city boundaries. Use of the right-of-way is required from time to time by the DPS, Board of Public Utilities, Police Department, Fire Department. I have enclosed a proposed resolution proposed for submission to MDOT. As you can see, the resolution, it authorizes directors of DPS, BPU, and the chief to apply for permits for various uses throughout the year. So you guys can see the resolution. It's in the packet. Any discussion on this?
Motion
You
to
got
adopt?
something, Jake?
Oh,
No, I just can take any questions.
This is we approve it every year, so
Same
I
thing you
think we're
approve
all
every
right.
year. Basically allows all of our departments to do the work we need to do. Many of the things we apply for a right-of-way permit, it's a blanket permit from the city or from the state to the city. Just allows us to do what we need to do. It differs from what I brought to you at the last meeting. That's more of a contractual thing where we get reimbursement from the state. That's what you guys approved at the previous meeting. So two different things, but this is pretty straightforward.
so moved.
motion on the floor from Councilman Bell, seconded by Councilman Briner to approve the annual right-of-way permit MDOT resolution. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We will move into 2020 guidelines for poverty exemption for property taxes. This is another yearly thing that we have to do. Board of Review is responsible for granting, denying requests from property owners seeking exemption from property taxes on their principal residence for reasons of poverty, as provided for in MCL section 211.7U. We're required to annually adopt these guidelines. Is Kim here tonight? They're
She is
the
not, so
same guidelines as last year, aren't they?
Correct, the federal income guidelines.
Okay, that's what I thought. So yeah, local guidelines must also include an asset level test from Bulletin 14. An asset test means the amount of cash, fixed assets, or other property that could be used or converted to cash for use in the payment of property taxes. The asset test should calculate a maximum amount permitted, and all other assets above that amount should be considered as available. All right, Dave, do you probably don't know how many people in the community take advantage of it. I don't want to say take advantage. How many people apply for the
I do not know
exemption?
the answer to that question, but I could ask Kim and get that to yourself and council. I know the board of, this is, as it said, for the Board of Review, so if someone comes and claims a poverty exemption, the Board of Review has a criteria in place. As you said, it's an annual approval, and we've historically used the federal poverty guidelines.
I would be curious to see those at some point, because this is a really quite an impoverished community. as far as what the federal guidelines look at. But, I mean, we all know that, you know, a city like Chicago, it costs $2,500 a month to have a one-bedroom apartment, so things are kind of different here. But I'd be interested to know how many of our residents claim this exemption. Any comments, questions? Do I have a motion to approve the attached resolution establishing guidelines to be followed by the Board of Review in granting or denying exemptions for the 2020 tax year?
So moved.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Zeiser, seconded by Councilman Veer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We'll move to resolution establishing transfer provision. Okay, you're here tonight. For the last time, probably.
For the last time. A few months ago that we were in the process, we had an employee that we transferred from the Department of Public Services to the BPU. And at that time, the retirement program was a defined benefit he had, and then he went to the BPU, which we actually transferred a division. It's an internal transfer that we do. I found out just recently that because in 2017 where council we had made the decision that we were going to cut off, you know, any of the defined benefit. We were going to go to defined contribution, okay? So what happened was that applies to any circumstances. It was absolutely nobody gets to go, you know, in. Now, MERS has said that they have available a transfer of if you're currently employed, they would have the option, you know, it's not anybody coming in, it would only apply to current employees, that they could stay in the defined benefit plan or they could go to the defined contribution. So, but we need to have a resolution passed. If the council decides to do that, you'll have to approve it. So the employee his years with the DB plan would stop, and then he'd have to start the DC plan. So he's still employed by the city. My concern is that, you know, we do have sometimes the opportunities do exist to go from the BPU to the city, back and forth or whatever it may be, and then particularly when they were hired in, you know, under the defined benefit, I just feel that they would want to, you know, now I think they would want to continue on the DB for sure, but I just think it would be appropriate to let them continue, as long as there's no interruption in employment or anything. But council does have to approve it. You have to, if that's what you choose to do.
Thank you, Kay. Any questions for Kay? Councilman Bell?
What kind of potential costs are we looking at down the road? Because I think
You
the
know,
whole reason that
I don't know. It really does have a whole potential because when we hired the employee, you were looking at that employee overall, you know, determining however length of times, and we don't know for sure how long. It's a 10-year vesting period for sure with the defined benefit, so they'd have to be here 10 years before they would kick into the retirement. I really couldn't, you know, answer that question because I don't know what the absolute cost would be. It would be into the big, you know, 30 years down the road, you know, as the actuaries go in and they make their determinations on all of that.
So if somebody moves from the city to IBEW, we're not required to let them take to transfer to DB?
Well, it is a union position. My concern is because it is a union that we would probably get some feedback from the union saying, hey, wait a minute, you know, he's one of our employees, you know, with the union, and they'll probably go to bat, you know, for that employee. That would be my thought.
To get the DB?
To stay in the DB, yeah.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
As Kay said, what this resolution allows is them to make the choice whether they stay in the DB or go to the DC. If the council approves it, if the council doesn't approve it, basically the city would have to convert them over to a DC and give them credit for the time they spent in the DB and convert them over with whatever MERS would tell us that value would be.
Because we've already made the contributions on the DB.
Right.
Actually, he has made the contributions accordingly with that union contract.
Correct. So that would be the upside, is it gives the flexibility to employees to move from department to department in cases. Probably won't happen all too often, but it could happen a few times.
It could.
Um,
But this has been the first time that it's
That's right.
occurred in, I can't tell you the number of years.
Since we closed
Many, yeah.
the defined benefit plans, so.
Yeah, it went the other way. I mean, Jake came from BPU, right?
Yep, but it was all DB.
Yeah, that was before we closed the plans.
Any questions, comments, guys?
Just, go ahead.
About if we weren't to allow it, then the city, because they were coming from DB into DC fund, they'd probably have to, the city would have to come up with maybe an initial conversion for the amount that they'd acquired or accrued in the DB plan.
Correct.
Okay, and so the city would make a certain, based on the amount that they've accumulated, maybe into their DC plan.
That is right.
Okay.
Councilman Stuchel, did you have
Well,
a question?
I guess I'm confused why the plans, why one doesn't stop, the other one starts.
Because the plans are based on divisions, so in this particular case, that gentleman was in a DPS division, and we closed the BPU division. So the way that the MERS is set up structurally, because it's closed, no one can go in unless the council approves this transfer provision from within. So it's like someone new coming in. They're basically saying they're a new person.
Because we were originally, I guess, I was under the impression that that applies to all the new employees coming in. And that was what we talked about generally, and it didn't even occur to me that a transfer, because they haven't, left employment or anything, but what they would still stay in the DB. But within the MERS system, when that was closed, it was closed, flat, no employees, no transfers or anything. So that was what happened.
Councilman Briner.
So with the DB plan, does the liability stop with him transferring over to the DC plan? Does that?
Yeah, for the DB, it would, because we would make that
So
conversion.
there's no chance for it to grow over the next 30 years. It's cut right there, and then he's switched over to a DC pro.
Correct, but we would have to pay that initial
Right.
conversion over, and then he would have that in his DC plan, whatever that number is.
So it would be limiting the city's liabilities by not letting him switch or transfer his DB over, which in the last year, that liability grew significantly. Well, at least at the end of the 2018, it'll do better this year because the market's up, but, so that's just something to think about. I'm gonna assume that it was probably a promotion from DPS to BPU. The only other thing that sounds like that we might have to worry about is if we say no, that the union could come back and fight for that, which most
Right.
likely, I'm sure they're always looking for a fight.
Yeah.
So that's things that we have to think about too.
Well, I think another thing is, it was not ever presented to the employee on that transfer but what it was, there was not going to be a division there. He was going to be going from the DB to a DB. So, and that, with him accepting that position as such, I know I'm sure he took that into, also in consideration when he did make that choice to go to that division, so.
Yeah, because you wouldn't voluntarily probably give away a MERS DB.
Yeah.
So, depending on the pay increase and whatnot. And if we were stating that you're going from a DB to DB, we almost have to approve it as, a fault there. So there could be potential, if we told them one thing and not another. So,
So we have no
I
choice.
hate having to say that, I think we should approve it, but it might cost us more in the long run. So, So I don't know, maybe we do one,
Well, by,
but we can't
if you
because if we
approve this
sign this.
resolution, and if
Yeah.
there's something that occurs, you would have to,
That's
you know, you can't turn around and say, okay, I'm gonna do one and go back. That's-
Can we
MERS
make a,
won't.
can we make a one-time exception?
I do not believe that. I think you would have to either rescind your resolution, you would have to go back and, I don't know, that's what they would require. But, again,
We probably filled this position on the DPS side.
yes,
There's
we
no way
have.
to go
We
back.
have, we have filled it on the DPS side, and we have now we have a DC person that's taken that position. So ultimately, you're eliminating, what you're doing is you're continuing to eliminate all your DBs. So, I mean, as we, employees leave, we're bringing in DCs, we're bringing in more DCs. So the chances, again, of this happening very many times, I would say is small. Like I said, this is only the one time that has, but again, Jake came from the other side, went over, but,
Councilman Beer has a question.
yes, I'm sorry.
Well, I would think the intent of council in 2017 on shutting down the DB was to allow the current employees to continue that. And given that this is really one department of the city to another department of the city that is already in the DB, and it allows them the opportunity to continue at that capacity. I don't think the intent of the city when they did it would have been to
No.
disallow transfer between departments into that DB program. And even as Ray was pointing out, that it probably in the long run is gonna cost the city more money possibly. I think you should probably approve the resolution, because I think the council should be good on their word.
That's what I was thinking
So
too.
I would move to approve the resolution.
I'll second that. Motion on the floor, well, any more discussion? Motion on the floor from Councilman Beer, seconded by myself, to approve the resolution establishing uniform transfer provisions for current employees. May I have a roll call vote, Katie?
Councilperson Sharp,
Yes.
Stucho,
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Sizer,
Yes.
Mayor Stockford,
Yes.
Councilperson Bell,
Yes.
Briner,
Yes.
Beer,
Yes.
and Morrissey.
Yes.
It's all approves, and that's resolution 3407.
Thank you, Katie. We'll move on to item E in new business, 2020-2021 budget priority discussion. Dave?
Thank you, Mayor. I put this on the agenda because shortly after the first of the year, Bonnie and I will start sitting down to work on the upcoming budget for next spring. And kind of wanted to talk with council and just get some points of view on a few items. Kind of tell council the items that I see as a priority, and also open the floor for ones that, council sees as well. And kind of in line with item D, the pension, one of the items that we definitely need to start working on is our unfunded pension liability. And the report is down in the agenda, and was also presented the information at the audit at the last meeting, where we're at about 74%. And it's funny how that works, because previously we were at 80%, and in 1 year it drops to 74, of course, because of the market and actuarial items. But this unfunded pension liability is actually something that affects both the BPU and the city. Some of the divisions, like in this case, the DPS is actually at a surplus, and some of them are at a deficit. And ultimately, the deficit is much greater than the surplus. So that being said, one of the things that I think is responsible to do is to start working towards or chipping away at that unfunded amount. MERS will actually give us, with the state's guidance, they've actually put us on a 20-year plan to pay that down. But that is, struggle, that is affected by the stock market and returns. My plan or thought is they also give you a 10-year number to try to accelerate that payment or to accelerate the reduction of that, our unfunded liability. I've told Bonnie and Chris in the BPU that I want to look at the 10-year plan and see if it's feasible to target that. So that is one item that I would feel strongly about starting to address as a city. We've had a deficit since I came here, but with other priorities, fire trucks and roads and other things, we really haven't had the extra revenue to start putting towards this. I think now is the time. Not saying we have excess revenue, but we need to push ourselves to try to be a little more creative to try to start chipping away at this. That's one item. The other, and the things I'm going to throw out are things that I see as potentially costing the city potential funds. The first, I have 3 or 4. The second is when we had purchased the fire truck, we did affect the staffing at the fire department. They agreed to look at 3 firefighters versus the 4th, and the 4th was to help cover the payment to the cemetery fund for that truck. We said at that time we would re-examine the staffing levels at a future date after we've had enough data to actually make a decision on whether it was working, whether we were seeing the reduction in cost to offset the expense, and whether or not it worked functionally as with a 3-man fire department providing 24-hour service 7 days a week. My concerns are that, and this is something that's come to my attention here most recently with time off and whatnot, that we are really putting a lot of pressure on those 3 firemen. They do have time off, and we will have periodically guys working 4 or 5 days straight, and that tends to wear on employees. Now, I know that there's pros and cons to both sides of this. Whether we keep it at 3 firemen, or we look at coming into full staffing, which was the 4th. The chief and I have been talking about that for a good few months, more in detail as it relates to the budget. I just wanted to make you aware of it, that we're having those discussions, because it might be something that we recommend increasing the staffing back up to that 4th firefighter. And one of the key issues I see there is, we've taken on a large number of medical runs, which back when we had previously had the struggle with the 3rd and the 4th firefighter under previous city manager, we weren't doing those medical runs and being the first responders on those, which have created a tremendous amount of calls for the department. So that being said, the chief and I are digging into this more, and that could be something that you'll see as a recommendation either way. Will be something that you'll see in this upcoming budget. Third item is what we've been focused.
Can I ask a question real quick, just on that point before I get too far? Is it possible to reduce our availability as far as medical calls, or we just have to go on them?
That's a good question. In fact, as late as today, the chief and I had that discussion this morning. Okay. And I think it's a discussion, it's a good question because it's exactly the question I asked the chief. And yes, but we need to thoroughly talk it through to make sure we're making the best decision for the public. So yes, but it is something that I would want the whole council to be aware of, the pros and cons.
Thank you. So sort of piggybacking off of that notion, Is there any way to heat map the medical runs so that, it would be interesting to know, for example, if the increase is because, the top 10 locations are responsible for X percentage of calls or something like that, because then we could approach it in some sort of rational way and have a better informed view of why this volume has increased.
We can surely take a look at gathering that data. I know the chief is on good terms with the 911 center. Maybe we can run some reports on that and also work with the internal staff to see what we can come up with.
Maybe the solution is hidden in the data.
Any more questions on that? It is, like I said, it is a work in progress, but a good question by Councilman Bell, because it was exactly my question this morning. From looking at, talking about like the sheriff's department did, right? So they're not providing 24-hour service. At night, they're not providing service. We have ambulance service with reading emergency and others in the community. The question is, are they doing the level of service for the community that we want? We get that with our 24-hour fire department, and if we did something less than 24 hours, there are a couple of things to look at. One, fire rating. That was a question I inquired to our insurance agent here this afternoon. And then two, are the current ambulance providers still providing the service that we want for the community? We've struggled with that. Then the millage was passed, and we're kind of waiting to see how that kind of pans out. But that is some of our struggle, because if it's a non-emergency, and the chief was telling me about this today, we had one call that was made here recently that they had to wait an hour and a half, and someone came from Somerset to transport them from a location here in the city to the hospital. So there's issues that I think we have picked up kind of the slack for others in the county and in the ambulance service community that was been providing ambulance service for the city, but
Seems like they're taking
That's
advantage of
that's the
us.
increase right there, guys. That's exactly what happened.
And then they also passed their own millage ostensibly as a result of that burden.
They don't take the slack
But
back.
they're not taking the slack back,
Yeah.
is what you're saying.
well, we're hoping they will, but we're evaluating that. So that is kind of some of the discussion we need to have, and I can assure you the chief and I have been checking under every rock on this particular item. And we'll be happy to share it with council, so don't feel like any question's a bad question. The next item are the street repairs and reconstruction. As Jake has indicated, we're looking at Fayette as our major project next year. We also have some more chip seal and some potential mill and overlay for the areas we can. One question I want to ask the council, because this has came up from a couple of you, was, we've been in the last few years doing this based on the 3 mills, approving it as allowed by charter to the council. Some council members have suggested maybe putting this out to a vote. And so that is my question to you, and we might differ on this. We could look at it both ways potentially. Would the council want me to look at what it would look like if we took it to a vote? Or are you comfortable with the charter language which was approved by the residents and allows you to make that decision on the 3 mills? Without any input, I'll probably go with the 3 mills, but that's why I'm asking. So that is my first real question on this.
Oh, you're asking us right now, huh?
Well,
I personally would rather see it go to a vote of the people, because I don't like taxing the residents without their direct permission on it. And I know we'll all differ around the table about this, but,
We can look at both, Mayor.
and that's just personal. It passes there hasn't been a year it hasn't passed at the council table yet, so. And,
I think that another justification for potentially putting it to a vote is I've been happy with the results, but for the reason he stated, I'll keep voting against it just because it should go to a vote. But on top of that, I've never quite felt comfortable with the funding mechanism, just because we are doing a little bit of rhetorical jujitsu there, because it's a sinking fund for the servicing of debts, and that's what we're able to do. But and we've kind of made an agreement by convention and then by law that we'll use it for roads, and we'll do the interdepartmentals to line that up, and but money's fungible, so it's kind of to explain that to the average person that well, we're going to take this for roads, but it's not really for roads, it's for the servicing of debts, and sometimes we're going to say that it just it's not wrong, but I've never been comfortable with it.
Councilman Sharp.
I've been on council since 2007, off and on. And the number one thing I always heard from people is fix these roads. In the last couple of years, we finally started fixing these roads. This last year, we made headways fixing these roads. Nobody wants to see their taxes go up. We're not going to get the state to pay for it. We do get funded for some of these roads in here, but we're tied into so many loopholes to do it. Mead, Garden, Vine, Ripon, the nightmare we went through there. That was a nightmare. But we are fixing the roads, and I've heard nothing but positive response about, thank God you're finally fixing these roads. I don't want to see my taxes go up, but I also voted for the fire millage because I want to make sure we have an adequate fire department there. Sometimes you have to bite a little bit off to pay for something. I don't want to see these roads stop getting fixed. We should ask the voters and see how they feel. But we have that option to do that. But if we do vote for the 3 mills and we continue that, we have to show them that's what it's going for, is fixing these streets. I've got a street up there called Westwood Drive. Go up there and take a visit. It's embarrassing going up there. It's bad. It is super bad. And those are beautiful homes up there. And they're paying a high taxes on their homes. And they've got the worst street you can think of up there.
That drains into Cold Spring Park, too.
It's just an embarrassment going up to those people have to go through. We have that gentleman come here so often talking about how many times they're up there in the winter fixing water leaks. I just want to see the roads get fixed. We are going in the right step. We are going in the right direction. We can agree to disagree on how we do this. But the bottom line is, let's get these streets fixed one way or the other. And if the voters have to decide on it and they say no, then that's the end of fixing the streets.
Unless we pass it.
Well,
Can we send it to a vote, and then if it gets turned down, we still have the option to do 3 mills?
Yeah, you could,
yeah.
legally, you could do that, yeah.
Yeah, we could present it, or I could, as the 3 mills for the budget talks, and then if that is turned down, then we would have the option to take it probably in the fall of next year to a vote.
I mean, I'd like to see what the citizens would, have to say about it. I think with us passing the 3 mills, we've shown what we're capable of doing when we have those extra funds and fixing streets and roads, and I would hope everybody would vote for it, because we are headed in the right direction. And if it gets turned down, then, and a council seat switches here and there, and then, you say no to it and it doesn't pass, well, then you're back into 2007. You're going backwards instead of forwards.
Just drive down Marion Street.
Just out of curiosity, when is this referendum to the public going to take place under our current law of elections?
Would have to be November 2020, right?
Well, you got to pass a budget by the end of June of 2020.
Good point, Jack.
You can't take this to the voters.
Yeah, because we wouldn't even. The first
Yeah.
opportunity
really,
would be May to do it.
If you read the charter, those 3 mills And this charter was approved by the citizens of this community at some point in time. I don't know how long that particular provision's been in there, but it was taken to a vote of the citizens. Those 3 discretionary mills have been there. It is, the charter is written to says that the council can assess these 3 mills. It doesn't, I don't recall seeing referendum language in there.
It's not there.
You're talking about amending the charter, right?
No.
Just talking about
Well.
adding 3 mills separately for roads, and they still
Oh, I see,
have the
doing a separate
functionality.
millage. I gotcha.
And still have the
Okay,
ability to
you
do
lost me there a little bit. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. How are you going to take
Yes,
this
so if-
discretionary 3 mills to a vote?
If the discretionary 3 mills are voted down,
Then do a
there
road
w- There
millage.
would be some support for taking it to a vote of the people to let them decide in the fall.
Got it. Okay.
You know something I don't know? All right, because I usually, Councilman Bell.
Everybody knows something I don't know. So the problem with raising taxes more and more, and if we did take it to the people, then the council, whoever was on it, would still have the ability to go 3 mills beyond that,
Yeah.
no matter what the increase was. So there will always be something that finds a use for $1, whatever cent dollar is raised in government, and that's because there's lots of services that are needed and things. We have legitimate roles, obviously, but well before half of you were on this council, maybe, we were consistently coming up with in between $200,000 and $500,000 for roads. So I wouldn't say if we vote the millage, if we vote the 3 mills down, then road work stops. It means our priorities may have changed if that's the case, but I don't think they will anytime soon. So we need to keep that in mind, and we need to not be spending the extra money that we have classically set aside in addition to the 3 mills on something else. We shouldn't be spending that money on something else if possible. And I know we have unfunded liabilities and all this stuff that Dave's talking about. It's all very important. But the more we raise taxes, the more people want to move out or not look at houses here. So less money for rehabilitation. Every single time we vote to let someone keep their own money, that's decidedly against the notion of raising taxes. So if it works for one person, it works for the whole city. I have people who live just across the border in Osseo that pay a much nicer house than mine that pay 1/3 of the tax bill, and they're 2 minutes drive away from where I live. And I'm sure that's all the residents out there. Of course, they don't get sewer and water, but they get power, they have emergency services, everything else. Anyway, I know there's a lot of debate back and forth about it, and we have debated it a lot. Not as this Council of 9, though, but from when I first came on, people said, focus the monies that we're giving you already on fixing the roads. And the city, I think it's a negative action for any municipality to take, whether it's county, state, local, to put tax increase measures on unknown election days. Happens very frequently in this community and
Everywhere.
everywhere, really. Because people think that election day is once a year, maybe once every 2 years. So if we did take it to the people, this 3 mills, not the sinking fund mills, we should do it when as many people as possible are going to vote, so that we actually know the will of the people, not just the will of those who can get the word out to their special interests and get them here. And special interest is fine. Everybody has things that they're concerned about, of course. So those are my feelings.
So, Mayor, this past year, if the council recalls, we actually had 2 resolutions, one with the 3 mills and one without. What I will do is follow that same guideline And then council can decide at that time, if it does not pass, if they would like to go to a vote at a subsequent time. If it passes, then the point is moot. But I'll prepare it like this previous year with the 2 resolutions, and then we can continue the discussion.
Sounds great, Dave.
It wasn't meant to put anyone on the spot or bring this back up, but, as far for guidance
Yes,
goes,
think about it,
I kind of want council's input. The second component of this that I'm looking at with the BPU, DPS, and also the zoning is the possibility on whether it makes sense to bring on kind of a municipal engineer to help us develop. And when I say bring on, I'm referring to as more than just a consultant, probably an employee, to help us develop and oversee our road plan to move forward on. We're basically over the last few years, we've been taking the lowest hanging fruit. Now we're getting to the bigger projects and other aspects of the community which aren't so simple. And it's, we're getting kind of a data put together from our current consulting engineer to kind of pull together the roads, the water, the sewer, the storm, and all those things. But we need to put together a plan that actually blends all those things, looks at the BPU's funding, looks at the DPS's funding, looks at what the city's bringing in annually, and then a plan we can follow and, move the city forward on. Because some of this might require bonding, some of the bigger neighborhoods. And, for all of us to make that decision, we need to come up with the plan and look at the data. And so this isn't something that's a done deal, but it is something that I've been kicking around and talking to the departments about, because how we would fund it is currently, like if we do construction engineering on a project like say Fayette, we pay for the engineering work, and then we pay on the backside for monitoring, construction management type services. This person potentially could do the construction management side of it, so we would capture that aspect of the project. And as opposed to subbing it out, we'd have someone within our own camp. They could also help us develop the plan and zoning. Our current city engineer, Matt Taylor, does zoning review work. I've spoke to him about this concept. He said that he was, because of his workload, he would be fine with something like this, and he would help whenever necessary. So I felt good about that. I spoke to him just to see how he would feel about it, and I think he was good with it. And then, so you'd have someone who could capture, we could capture the revenue off the backside of projects to pay for them. The zoning work, we're paying the city engineer to review this for zoning already. That would help pay for this person. So we're evaluating that. And again, it'd be, allow us to have a team member that, we don't have to pay every time they come into town. They're here and they can be a critical part of the team. Not that anyone's doing a bad job, but it's something that I think we would benefit from. So that's another aspect of what the street repair and reconstruction we're going to take a look at for this after the first of the year. We're going to continue to seek out grants, whether it be for housing renovation. Hopefully we get that one, because I've already had calls from some folks wanting to get names on the list that could use the help for that $30,000 to make housing repairs for lower income residents. And we're going to look at opportunities to continue to look at opportunities to cut costs over the short and long term for the city. Some of these items are a little more challenging than, well, most of them are challenging because the political aspect of some of the programs or services that have been in place for years and years and years. So, we're going to continue to evaluate them, and if there's an opportunity to save money for the residents, we will take it, and we will include the council and the residents in on those decisions. Just a couple of those are, the Mitchell Research Center, that building and how that's utilized, dial-a-ride. There's been some discussion globally about needing a county-wide transportation consortium. And so those are discussions we should have. Not everyone will be happy about the discussions, but we need to have the discussions to make sure we're utilizing our limited resources wisely. And I know we're going to continue to do that. And lastly, we have our meeting on January 25th with the Planning Commission, TIFA, and EDC and Council to talk about the master plan. And that'll be on a Saturday, mid-morning for a couple hours. We're going to stick to that time frame of a couple hours and talk about what all those boards, what they provide to the city and how they see the city moving forward, so that information can be used in updating our master plan this year. So with that, if there are things that the council would like to ask a question about or would like me to put on my radar for consideration, please feel free.
That was good, Dave. That was good. As far as the city engineer goes, show us how that makes sense financially.
It saves us money.
Yeah, show us that it saves money. And my philosophy is usually, government doesn't do things as good as consultants are able to do them. But then the flip side of that coin, sometimes mercenaries aren't all they cracked up to be. When you want to have a team member, you put somebody on a team, so show us how that makes sense. And I would be in support of that. If you guys could, this discussion will come up further, but I would like to reevaluate what we're doing with leaves. I think that this has been a big failure this last, and I know you guys don't want to hear that, but I think what we did this last fall isn't working out. I don't see many, I see maybe 1 in 10 residents is actually taking advantage of it. I've talked with other cities about how they handle it. Everybody's got a different way to handle it. I don't think anybody has the right answer. I did find out from Jeff Gray in Jonesville that they've got a deal with farmers where they just dump all they don't keep a compost site. They've got some big farmers that will take all the leaves they can give them. So I thought that was really clever. And I know that you talk with Jeff all the time, Dave, and you guys are close. But I also know they have a vacuum truck. I would be interested to know if they would do something with us as far as like a joint. Since we're looking into it with the police coverage, I think maybe, the 4th firefighter, you're right. I think that's extremely important. I think those guys are taxed harder than we know right now. And then finally, I would just say, no, I think that about covers it. The leave thing, though, there's so many residents that are upset about it. And I found out Modern Waste is telling people now, if they didn't get their leaves this time around, and they drop them off at the place, it's $3 a bag to do it. So I looked over the contract, something that we can do year to year. We're using them for garbage for 5 years, but as far as leaf pickup goes, we don't have to use them every single year. Not saying go back to the way we were doing it before, but maybe let's explore some new options. So,
and just to add some comments on there, that is an additional service, so it's not something
I get it.
that we need to do through Modern. And Jake and I have been kicking this around because we've heard those complaints as well, or concerns. And the only thing I would say is everything comes down to money.
It does, absolutely.
So we're looking at it, and we're gonna be talking about it, and we can have, basically an open discussion about it. Because, I've had Jake figure out what he thinks it would take for us to actually do it. We've looked at, okay, how many vacs would it take to handle the city's load? It's probably 2. And, they're about $90,000 to $95,000 a piece. So that's if we're buying them, $200,000 worth of equipment. And then we have to tackle the issue of where do the leaves go?
Yeah.
Because Jonesville takes theirs to a farmer, but we have a lot more.
No, I get it.
A
We
lot more.
probably got
So-
8 times the leaves Jonesville has.
Yeah,
So,
we have been, I just want you to know that we've been talking about it, and we can continue that discussion in public services and with the full council.
Okay.
Definitely.
Question, was there a cost savings from not doing it this year the way we did it?
Yeah.
Yes.
mhm.
Yes.
Okay, what was the cost savings? Because you were saying saves us money.
Well,
The engineer, looking for an engineer. Well, we just did something to save some money. We inconvenienced people with the leaf bags and all that. I understand that. But we saved money. Isn't that what the goal of this council is, to try and save some money sometimes, find ways, save money? But we rocked the cart.
It's not a forever principle. It's situational, right?
Well, you're saying, you're looking at an engineer and you're saying, well, the cost factor's in here. Now, we come up with doing bag and leaves, and Adam's right, looking at farmers, stuff like that. The vac truck that Jackson bought, 2 of them. They bought him $640,000 for 2 vac trucks.
Yeah, well, we can't afford that.
No,
I mean,
they got it at a cost savings. Somebody else backed out on it, so they bought them for that. So there's a cost savings either way you go. We want to offer the service, but it's a service, is it a required service or is it a luxury service we're offering? It's one of those things.
I think Councilman Beer had a comment or question too.
Back on that 20. What was the time on that? It was January 25th.
I believe I believe it's 10 o'clock, 10 to noon. Yes. But I'll make sure you have, confirm that.
Trust me, I just want to say on that point, I've heard about the leaves too from people. The elderly, they're upset with it, and I understand their point. But I try to explain, we're trying to find ways to save money to put it back into the city somewhere. And this was just one way to look at it. What else do we want to cut? Do we want to cut dial-a-ride? Do we want to get rid of the rec department as cost savings? Those are services that are provided for this community. I don't want to get rid of them. So it was just something we looked at. Is it going to be a failure or is it going to be a success? We've only done it for this fall.
And the spring.
And the spring's coming up. Well, the spring.
We did last spring too, but Mayor Stockford's just saying, let's look at more ideas.
Well, I will agree
He's not,
to what.
nobody's saying go back.
Right, the
down
only
to
thing
how
I
we did it.
disagree with Modern's pickup was doing it in October. That was a failure. The leaves weren't even coming out of the trees yet, and they wanted to go around and do their first pickup. That was a joke.
And some of that came from the timing was they were supposed to be doing Jackson's collection, and so our pickups were set up around that, and then Jackson dropped out of it. And Jake actually came to me and said we can move it up, like the December one up, if we wanted to, but we had already published it and advertised it. So I'm like, no, we better stick with what we've advertised, otherwise we'll be potentially, it'll be
Cutting people off.
yeah. So
Right.
we criticized for that.
Even with the old way we picked up leaves, I still got 100 complaints every time that we did leaf pickup. I'm just, I mean,
But,
it's always an issue.
Absolutely. So it continues to be something we should
It's the
talk about.
blessed to be known as the Tree City.
Well, and the issue too that we ran into with doing leaf pickup ourselves was when the first snow was. When was the first snow this year?
November 11th.
Exactly. So, we would have been right in the thick of picking up leaves with our trucks, and so that would have been very interesting for Jake, I'm sure. So I agree. I've had, I don't know how many complaints about leaves, and I've seen leaf bags sit outside for months.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to decide what we're doing. If we're going to stick with it, then we need to police it, which I know Chief Hepner is giving me the eye right now. But, you know, we have to do something, we have to stick with it. I agree, though, the bags system was probably not the greatest idea to go to. But, I mean, we had to, otherwise we're dumping, or we can look at a millage for a new compost site.
Well,
And then
I
we'll
will
go
tell
back to
you
picking them up. But
the-
that's going to be very expensive, and I don't think people want that. So we got to think of another solution.
I think the city of Marshall actually, the voters approved 1 mil just for leaf collection.
I think this city would too. I honestly do. And I had told Councilman Valenzizer in the past, this is literally like the only service where we actually interact with every one of our residents, and they all take advantage of it. And we took it away from them. The last thing that they had that was for everybody. So I get that people are mad about it, you know. But we, I'm not saying go back to the way that we were doing it before. I'm not even saying change it. I'm just saying I think we should explore it, because I think that this couldn't be the most efficient way, and it couldn't be the most convenient way. And I guess I think I underestimated how important this service was. And when I talked to Hudson, Stephen Hartzell over there, their city manager, and we were talking about it, and he said, "Oh my gosh, we would never get rid of that. It's just something our residents value too much. It's just something our residents value too much." And I'm like, you know what? I think maybe our residents did too.
Yeah, we need to look at it. We need to do something, even if it's giving away free bags. We buy pallets of bags, they pick them up somewhere, and so it's not the extra cost of them, because we took it away and then we're making them pay for bags. So, I mean, you're taking something away, and then now you got to take money out of their pockets to buy bags. And some places, they have pretty big yards. I know Wolcott Street, I don't know if we make them, I don't know how, they might just rake it to the back of their property, because they're right there on the edge of city limits. At least that's what I would do. But there's other places in town, Charles Street up through there, they got some big parcels up there. I bet you they're probably using 40, 50 bags at $3 a piece.
I used 30 on my third job of the year.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just the thing, you know, maybe we can do something as far as purchasing a couple pallets or a bunch of pallets, and people can pick up bags from somewhere. I think we need to at least give a little back. And then if we did that, then we could police it a little bit better and just say, hey, we're giving you free bags. All you have to do is you pick them up now instead of raking them to the edge. You pick them up and you put them in a bag. We're giving you the bags. If you can't do that, then we're going to police it. That's my thought on it.
Maybe we could get Modern to do it without bags.
Good luck.
I know, I agree, but
Yeah, that would be incredibly labor intensive.
Councilman Bell.
You know, I brought up these concerns almost a year ago when we were considering this and talking about it, and after we made the decision, tried to bring it back. But I think that there's too many people who are, I mean, raking them out is one thing, but then also picking up, putting in the bag it's really hard on people. And there was a talk of all these enterprising businessmen who would come and, you know, offer to bag people's leaves, but nobody ever knocked on my neighborhood, at least. But the big thing, I think, is just you know, we got to make sure we're keeping what is best for our best bang for our buck, really. And we did save money. We saw those in the contract, and we saw that the tens of thousands that we would save. I would predict that this probably will be the worst spring for leaks in sewer drains in years. And I don't know what kind of cost it's going to take to get those out. There are tons of people who just said, I'll just sweep them out to the road.
I think a lot of people just gave us
won't
the
worry
middle
about
finger
it. I
and
just
was
won't
like,
do it. So
I'm just not doing it.
Yeah.
I'll still rake them out to the curb. What are they going to do?
Yeah. So
My neighbor was one of them.
I think there's
Won't
going to be
mention
a
any
lot of
names,
that
though.
this year, and we probably won't realize as much of a savings as we would have. As far as policing it, the bags that were out really early did get picked up. I don't know if the bottoms fell out of them or whatever, you know. We put 75 bags in my garage for 3 weeks before the December date, because that's when we could do it. You know, we're hauling them out in the snow because it was only a 1-day thing, as everybody knows. But if we do keep this policy, we need to have the bags be able to stay out a little longer, if we are going to clamp down and police it, because 1 week is just not enough. And had I decided to rake my leaves in that week before the December pickup, I would have been raking frozen leaves, you know, and water all into the bags and everything. So nobody could have done it in that week, unless they had a place to store the bags. So it's a big, and then the weather changes every year. So, you know, it's a big problem. I think we need to really get some creative solutions to it.
City Manager.
Mayor, just to finish up on that, so this December 14th pickup, we did not, people had leaf bags out for weeks.
Yeah.
You know, because they did it when they had time. We did not
Give any citations or anything.
write any citations or even harass people, because I think we were most interested in getting that those people were doing it.
Picked up their leaves at least.
That's right. So we weren't going to harass them even if they put them in the wrong spot. And we had some that were they probably put them in the spot because they were like ticked off they were doing it. But we didn't harass them because we were thankful that they did it. So that being said, we will continue this discussion and look at our options, and we'll talk about it with council.
Awesome. Any more questions, comments? Councilman Beer?
Now, this wouldn't be for most, or for some of the residents of Hillsdale. I know growing up, I've always composted. Now, I have a big lot, so I can do it pretty easy. But compost leaves make really nice garden fertilizer that just going green and going natural. And I'm sure some people have big enough yards where they can just do a section in the backyard and just throw the leaves there. And come spring, throw it on your gardens. Just a thought.
That's what we do at my house. We just leave them in the yard, honestly. Run them over with the mower. So, mulch them. But we don't have that many trees in our yard, so. Comments, questions?
Oldest tree in the city's next door to me, I think.
Hey, that's awesome.
Bill couldn't get through his yard.
It's ankle deep. Have I ever shown you a face? Ankle deep.
Tree City.
And I'm not going to admit to this, but they'll tell you that you can't make them disappear in the regular garbage, but I've heard of people doing that.
Well, yeah, they'll pick up anything you put in those blue bins, I'll tell you that
Yeah.
much. Or
Give me half a.
brown bins.
I wound up renting a 40-yard roll-off because I had a lot of, I just bought the house that we've been living in, so the previous owner had a lot of things. So just in general, that's a good plug for Modern. I was surprised at how reasonable that was. It was only a couple $100. I don't think you're supposed to put leaves in that, and I'm not encouraging that, but it is really good for spring cleaning. I've filled that sucker, and it was great.
Yep, I've done it before too.
Okay, that's all I have, Mayor.
All right, well, thanks, Dave. Seeing no more discussion, we'll move into miscellaneous reports, no proclamations. We've got some reappointments to the zoning board. Richard Smith, John DeBacher, they've both been on the zoning board for quite some time. They usually show up to meetings and they do a pretty good job, so I'm.
So move.
Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Briner, seconded by Councilman Bell, to reappoint Richard Smith and John DeBacher to the zoning board of appeals. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Item number C, other info only. You guys saw this, correct? It's in our packet. Dave, did you have any extra information on this stuff, or?
No, Mayor.
Okay. All right, so we'll move into general public comment. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit your comment to 5 minutes. Please limit your trips to 1 to the podium, and please understand per our council rules that there won't be any back and forth between council and the person while they're at the podium or while they're in the audience. And you can speak on whatever you like. Podium's now open.
Well, I'm Louise Worms, 80 East Fayette Street, and as I said, I came to speak on the leaf pickup, and I see they did have a budget priority discussion, and I would urge that 1 mil. That is a real hardship. We have many elderly people in our town, and some of us are elderly and have big yards and no children around to help us get those leaves up. It was, I think, poorly thought out, and I would encourage city employees to seek out other communities, see what they're doing, see if we could get a cooperative piece of material or machinery that could help everybody. But this wasn't very satisfactory, and many, many people, as you know, are disappointed. So I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but I have to say my piece.
Thank you, Louise.
I'll keep this quick, but I wanted to thank a few folks. I know we've talked about the Cold Springs Park remodel that we did up there. And I want to just thank a few people because it wasn't just a couple. It was quite a large group that came together and did something pretty nice in the community that's almost complete. A little more work will still happen in the spring with some ADA walkways and things for accessibility. But I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the Hillsdale Kiwanis Park Committee, Do Right Masonry, Life Challenge with Jackie Mosley, Leuthauser for painting the equipment, Brayman Roofing craned that equipment in and helped us set it. Craig Wickham Tree Service also helped with some trimming. And even Don Scoville and Ted Jansen, who kind of got this ball rolling a couple of years ago. John Adelman with sandblasting. And all these folks either donated something for free or very low cost to help with this project. And the final person, Wes Wickham, finally grabbed this bull by the horns and helped us get it wrestled right to the ground to get this project done. I'd be thrilled to be a member of another group like this to do a project like this. It was very nice to not have it just thrown on the city's back to make it happen. Some people stepped up to the plate. So that whole situation went very, very well.
Awesome. Thank you, Jake. And thanks to all those people. Cold Springs looks lovely. So, any more public comment?
Robert Soha, 29 South Broad Street. On the millage, I would appreciate, if you ask the public to vote for 3 mills, I'd vote against it. It's my understanding that the council has been voting or approving the 3 mills for the roads for the last years, and we've made tremendous headway there. It's also my understanding that if we voted and added the 3 mills, then you'd be able to add another 3 mills on top of that. And when does it end? So, because you'd still be able to vote every year for 3 mills. And we would have had voted the 3 mills, so now there's 6 mills. And then we got another mill for leaves, which I'm having to rethink my position on that because of her comment just now. But I pay about $100 a year to get my leaves trucked out if I don't mulch them in my backyard and put them in a compost pile. So that's just something I do. The city changed the rules didn't accommodate me, so I do that. I've never complained to any of you. It's not a big deal. I have a lot of trees, I have a lot of leaves. Personally, if the city doesn't have to pick up the leaves, it's my responsibility as a homeowner to take care of them. So I think the whole city could maintain that responsibility if they were encouraged to do so properly. Thank you for your support.
Thanks, Robert.
Dennis Wayne Scott, 34 Garden Street. Concerning the leaves, you know, I wasn't able to do mine. I had a great neighbor that did mine for me. I was able to bless him a little bit. But the thing is that, like the lady here said, you know, the older we get, and a lot of you're young yet, the older you get, a lot of this isn't that easy to do anymore. You know, to grab a rake and go out there and rake the backyard, you know, some of us had back trouble and different things that we went through when we were your age, and now, you know, we're paying for it because we abused our bodies, and it's a little harder to get out there to do some of the things that we used to be able to do. As far as millage and adding more millage on, well, every time we as senior citizens, we get a raise, what they call a COLA raise, it's always funny how somebody can come up and take that away from you. You know, you look at it and you think that you might have a little bit of a windfall this year, but then either government of some types, whether it's local or federal or state, or even your renters or the people you pay your rent to or the people you make your house payment, they're always somehow coming up with an idea to take that money away from the elderly. And, you know, my wife and I, we both worked for many years. We strive to have money to, when we retired, that we might be able to do certain things. But, you know, now we find out that every penny that we have to put into medicine and stuff, and, you know, find ourselves having to find routes and ways to go around. So the more you keep raising and putting millage on it, sounds good, but to the elderly in the community, it sounds like hell, you know, to them. So just keep that in mind when you start thinking more about getting in the back pockets of the elderly. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Any more public comment?
Hi, Don Hernandez, 30 South Main Street. Only thing I have to say about leaves is I talked about this last fall concerning the leaves, about the infrastructure. I think Jake's going to really have some issues in the spring, if not already. You know, with them, you know, thousands of pounds of leaves going into our sewer system. If we even had a place to put the leaves, I had 40 bags in my garage alone. If there was some place throughout the course of the week my guys could have taken leaves, we probably could have had the whole street from one end of my property to the other all cleaned up. But we had no place to put them. But, you know, that's a problem that you guys have to look for in the future. But the real reason why I'm here today is to thank people, thank everybody. We talked a lot today about the homeless, about taxes, about streets, about, you know, beautification, about leaves. As a business person and somewhat being on the front line, I see these things because I look for these things. My type of business is people come here for whatever reason, but they leave for another reason. Today we got the blue envelope back, and this is a report card from Booking.com. And they're the ones that say, you know, you're doing this right, you're doing that right, you know, you should close or you should be open. So after the high fives with my employees and the hugs and the kisses, you know, we decided to open up the thing. I wanted to show you what we got. We got a 9.3 out of 10, which means we're doing a hell of a job. That's what this means. And, you know, like I said, you know, we sat down, I said, well, what is it that we did that we can do better at? And they looked at us and said, well, we could do this, we could do that. And the first thing I said, well, why can't we go out and pick out the rest of those leaves? And we started talking again, I said, you know, you guys, you should come to these meetings once in a while because these people work really, really hard at what they're doing. It's not an easy thing to have to worry about 70 homeless people running around the city. We're definitely on the right track, definitely on the right track. You know, you're always going to have pitfalls and everything. But there's two things that I do know is nothing's for free. And councilmen, we have to pay to have things that the middle class people want. The poor people are not going to pay for, you know, the wages of these people sitting behind me. And they're not going to pay for your wages. We have to have the middle class people in the city of Hillsdale in order to maintain the services that we have. We're very happy to be here. 13 years ago, my board was adamantly against us putting that outfit like we have at the Rose Corinne. We're continuing. We're looking for another site. We'd like to we'd like to open up a second place. But again, it's all we can say is just keep at it. Keep at it. Don't let people, for a better word, frustrate you. We think we're on the right track. And hopefully, you know, next year we'll come back with maybe, no, we're probably not going to get much better than this. This is probably the grand slam of somebody in my field. And again, we're happy. We're happy to be here. Thank you, all of you, for doing, you know, this week after week after week. And especially, you know, the police, our fire, our city, you know, our streets, you know, it's a big project. It's something that it'd be a hard thing to take on twice a month, or in your case, every day, 7 days a week probably. Thank you again.
Thanks, Don, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Any more public comment?
I would just like to say just a quick thank you here to everyone with the city of Hillsdale. It's been a real blessing for me to be here since 1980. August 5th, 1980 is when I first started. So through the years, we've had seen a lot of things, the absolute wonderful things going through. We've seen a lot of downfalls too. But I just want to just say to you that I believe in the city of Hillsdale. I wouldn't have been here for almost 40 years to do it, because I know that it's got so much potential, and you guys can just make the decision to keep going forward. And it's been an honor for me to work with all the employees. Every employee that has been here through the years, it's just been a delight. It really has been. I've enjoyed every bit of it. And I just wanted to share something real quickly with you. I was going through my personnel file because I had to get my retirement stuff around, and I came across my resume. And as I pulled it out, I looked at it, and actually, in those days, we had typewriters. And I had a Royal typewriter. I don't know if you're familiar with a Royal typewriter, but it had blue ribbon in it. And I remember typing it, and I thought, now this will get their attention, you know? And so when I typed it, and the ad was a blind ad to the city of Hillsdale. I didn't know it was city. It was a blind ad to a P.O. box. And so I responded to that P.O. box, and it was the city of Hillsdale. So when I came, they called me to come in for an interview. At that time, Charles Greer was the city manager, and he interviewed me for the position. And in my resume, I'm going to read this because I laughed out loud as I was reviewing this. And I says in my personal comments, in this resume I have briefly outlined my past 10 years. And I says I've been seriously thinking about seeking position if I can locate one which I feel is a challenging one. I'm definitely not seeking a clerk or a stenographic position, and my salary requirements will be very high. Now, the very high, I had set myself, I was not going to take a position for less than $5 an hour. That was my goal, $5 an hour. When I told Mr. Greer that, he said, whoa, I don't think I can pay that much. And I said, well, that's okay. So I thanked him, and we finished the interview, and I left. And within 2 days, I got a call from Mr. Greer. He says, could you come in? I want to talk to you. And I said, fine. So I came in. He says, you know what? I've been thinking about this. And he says, how about if I start you at $4.60 an hour, and I'll put you up to 5 in 6 months? And I said, I think that would be fair. So that's how I started my career with the city of Hillsdale. But I didn't quite get to the 5, but within a short time I did. So, but thank you all. It's been a joy and a pleasure, I must say. So, and I wish everybody the best.
Awesome. Thank you, Kay. Interestingly enough, you started with the city of Hillsdale the week after I was born. So, don't mean to date you there, but. Any more public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the podium and we'll move into city manager's report. Dave?
I pretty much said my piece earlier. I will just wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and remind everyone about the New Year's Eve event at the fairgrounds this year. It should be a very nice event with fireworks and carriage rides and ice skating rink and kids' activities, a beer and wine tent. And I will say that the whole event was funded through local support, over $18,000. The community did a great job coming together.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. We'll move on to council comment. Councilman Sharp.
First of all, the Light Up the Hillsdale Parade was awesome. A half-an-hour parade. I appreciate seeing the other fire departments showing up. Montgomery, Moscow, Pittsford, Reading Rangers football team being there and their band and everything. Half-an-hour parade. It's getting bigger every year. I think they're doing a great job, the HBA, and we got to commend them for what they're doing there. And of course, the mayor and I were at the grand opening at the local eatery, and it's good to see that, and it's good to see the progress that Hillsdale's making, and let's continue that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Councilman Sharp. Any more council comment? Councilman Zeiser.
I just want to say congratulations to Jake for seeing through the Garden Vine Mead and Ripon project, which I know was brutal and thankless, and through many a misstep, he shepherded that thing through. I also want to say congratulations to Kay. My stepmother is an HR person, and she also teaches HR, and so I know that it can be hard and thankless work. She likes to say that she always asks her students, their college students, why do you want to go into this field? And when people say, well, I like working with people, she says, oh, no. No, that's not why you go into this field, because it can be a slog. So thank you for your many decades of service to the city, and I hope we carry it in good hands.
Thank you, Councilman Zeiser. Councilman Briner.
One more thing for me, careful what you wish for there, Jake. The Exchange Club is kind of interested in maybe potentially doing a project like that too over at Cold Springs, but it might be Ward 1 area. So we'll I don't know if you've been informed on that yet, but you have been now. So just food for thought. Careful what you wish for.
That Kiku's, that's the only place over there I can think of. Any more council comment? Alrighty, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Or
Motion on the floor from Councilman Bell, seconded by Councilman Briner to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Merry Christmas. This meeting is adjourned.